I've been using the DJI Pocket 2 since it came out around a year and a half ago. And it's impossible not to listen to the rumors that the new Pocket 3 is coming only a few months down the line, at some point in October, November. So if DJI was to come and ask me what would be the improvements that I would do on the Pocket 2, this would be my wish list. For the sake of keeping things organized, I'm gonna split this in two separate sections, okay? So one is gonna be hardware and the other one software, because you can't have one without the other, but each of them independently needs some improvement, okay? So in terms of hardware, what would be my wish list? Well, I think it's about time that the Pocket 2, the Pocket 3 gets a larger sensor, okay? So most compact cameras, smartphones over the last year and a half or 2 years, they've come out with bigger sensors, and that makes a big difference on the overall quality of the image that you can capture. But what it would be really nice is that whether they do a 1-inch sensor or whatever other size, okay, is that whatever accessories you bought for the DJI Pocket 2, that they actually work. So if you bought NDs or any other type of filter for the DJI Pocket 2, lenses, whatever, that they work, because there is nothing worse than wasting money on accessories that they only last for a year or 2 years. Another one that I find extremely irritating that I really hope they fix is the SD card slot, or the micro SD card slot. Because honestly, it's so badly implemented and you don't really need rocket science here to implement something that is a lot better. At the moment, if you don't have long nails or something to push that card back in the slot, it's a real pain. And another thing that it would be really nice is that they get a reliable workflow with computers and obviously a much faster data port. You know, USB-C or even faster, okay? We live in 2022, we can't be having slow data rates, okay? It needs to be really fast, because sometimes you might be doing something for 10 minutes, other times you might be filming for 2, 3, 4 hours. So it's nice to be able to download the footage without actually having to take the card out if you wish to do that. And it needs to be done in a reliable way, because so many people have contacted me, asking me questions as to why their Pocket 2 doesn't link up with their computer. Some people with PCs, some people with Macs, and I've had my own set of issues with it, which means that I just now take the mini SD card and download it directly to my computer, because that's a reliable workflow. I can't rely on my Pocket 2 connecting to my computer, so I just can't be bothered and I just take the card out and do it that way. So that would be, to me, a much needed improvement. Another thing that it would be really nice that they do is that they actually make use of that amount of space that you have at the front of the Pocket 2, so that they actually built in the joystick and several controls for the Pocket 3, okay? Because yes, it's nice to have these little adapters that you can take on and off, but there are some times that you might want to have the adapter for the smartphone, for instance, and at the same time you don't want to be limited by the fact that you can't use the joystick or whatever other adapter, because there might be times that you might want to use the larger screen and other times that you don't want, and you don't want to be fiddling, taking adapters and putting adapters back on. It would be really nice that they actually work out a way to use that whole front panel, because at the moment it's pretty much unused. And another thing that they should do, in my opinion, they must do, is to make sure that the Pocket 3 is water resistant. I mean, at least the splash resistant or a bit more. I mean, I don't need the Pocket 3 to be 50-meter underwater deep water resistant. For that, I want to have a proper underwater mount. But I want to be able to film outdoors in a rainy day without having to worry whether the Pocket 3 or the camera gimbal inside or the camera is going to fail. But they need to make sure that people can use the Pocket 3 when it's raining, because some of the coolest and most interesting shots that you can get is when it's raining or just after rain, when you get those nice reflections when the ground is wet. Honestly, you need to be able to film under the rain. And do I want a larger onboard screen? Yes, it would be nice to have a larger screen, but I don't want it to be too big, because I would not want the Pocket 3 to be double the size of the Pocket 2. Yes, it would be nice to be a little bit bigger so that you can actually grip it a bit better. And obviously having a larger screen would be nicer, because at the moment I feel the screen might be a bit too small. Especially when you get all those menu text and options, you know, it kind of distracts you, and before you realize, you can't really tell whether your headroom is too big or not. But I don't need it to be too big. For that, I can have the smartphone adapter and then attach my smartphone if I wish. But it would be really nice to have a larger screen and a slightly larger body. And one thing that they must do, somehow they have to figure out, okay, is a better way to do vertical filming or portrait filming for social media like TikToks and Instagrams, because at the moment, having to do it like this, it's just not practical. It's okay to get the odd shot here and there, but if you want to do long-term filming, it's not a practical way to do it. They need to come up with a better and easier way to film, whether it's horizontal or vertical, and it really needs to be done nicely, because at the moment, it's really not functional. It's an absolute pain. And another thing that I reckon they should do, I don't know how you can implement it, but this would go hand in hand with having a beefier or a bigger body, is to implement an onboard cold shoe mount, because that would give you so much flexibility in terms of adding an accessory, whether it's a light or an onboard microphone or whatever, any accessory that you might want to use for whatever it is that you're filming. Because at the moment, there is no easy way to attaching it, and you need to buy adapters, and the whole thing just feels cumbersome, you know. So having the option to have a cold shoe mount on board would be a really nice upgrade. And two of the things that I think it would be really nice if they improve it. I don't know how much of these they can improve, but obviously this is my wish list, okay? One would be a bigger battery life, okay? Because in this day and age, having a battery that only lasts for about an hour and a half, it's not good enough. You know, you need to have at least 3-4 hours minimum, okay? When most gimbals last nowadays 9 hours, 10 hours, or even 16 hours, some of them. I mean, a smartphone like an iPhone 13 Pro Max, you could literally be filming all day and you don't even need to worry about the battery. I mean, that's just a thing of the past. So I genuinely think that they need to look into this. They need to provide a solution. I don't care whether it's a built-in battery that you need to recharge or external batteries that you need to swap. So I don't know, they need to come up with something so that you actually get a good 4 or even more hours of usable filming, because, you know, in 2022, an hour and a half of battery life, it really is not good enough. And lastly, it would be really nice if the functionality that you get with the do-it-all handle is actually built into the Pocket 2. Another thing that it would be really helpful that you get with the do-it-all handle, but you don't get it with the standard Pocket 3, is an actual built-in 1/4-inch thread. Because in the Pocket 2, if you don't buy the do-it-all handle, it's a little adapter, and if you mount the Pocket 2 onto a monopod or some mount, it can easily pop off. I've seen it happening. It nearly happened to me once. And one of the things that I love about the do-it-all handle is the fact that you have the 1/4-inch thread at the bottom, and you can rely on that. It's not going to go anywhere. But I think in this day and age, with so many advances and so many fancy cameras, compact cameras, gimbals coming out over the last 12 months, year and a half, this would set the Pocket 3 apart. But the larger sensor would probably be the one thing that I reckon would make the Pocket 3 stand out, because this leads me to the software upgrades, okay? With computational photography in so many smartphones and compact cameras, it would be really nice if DJI can provide us with a way to cheat depth of field, much like the Sony CV1 does, that you press one button and then suddenly your background becomes blurred. The iPhone is now providing the cinematic mode, although the implementation is far from ideal. So it would be really nice that they provide something that they don't just give you the effect, but they allow you to lock exposure and white balance and pretty much operate it manually just as you do with a normal mode. It would justify buying the Pocket 3 because it would make it the perfect camera. I mean, why would you be lumping around a big DSLR or mirrorless camera with interchangeable lenses when you can just have the Pocket 3 do it for you? You know, that alone would justify me spending whatever additional money the DJI charges for the Pocket 3. Another thing that I would really like is the ability to film either at 10-bit or 8-bit. Much like the iPhone allows you to do these days using a third-party app like Filmic Pro, it would be really nice if, depending on the job or what it is that you're doing, you can just flick a switch and decide to film at 8-bit or 10-bit. That to me would make such a massive difference, because there are times that you don't really need to film at any other resolution than 8-bit. 90% of the filming you could easily do at 8-bit. So having that ability to switch between 8-bit and 10-bit would be really, really nice. And to top it all off, they must do some sort of implementation of D-Log color space. It's okay to have the D-Cine-like, over the normal mode, but I think they need to be able to provide something a bit more. And this is where I'm thinking that they could release a DJI Pocket 3 and a Pocket 3 Pro, where some of these Pro features would be packed into a bit more expensive Pocket 3, and for the people that they don't really care about these things, they could have the normal Pocket 3. Plus it would make financial sense really, because if you're going to be adding these Pro features, you want to charge more, and some people might not want to pay for those because it just doesn't work for them. So when you compare what the competition is doing, you need to be able to provide that. Another thing that they should do, for instance, is increase the resolution. Yes, this would go hand in hand with the size of the chip, possibly. I'm not an engineer, but it would be really nice if they could do 5K filming. And again, this could be a case for a Pro Pocket 3 that can film at 5K with all these Pro features, and a standard Pocket 3 that would just film at 4K as it does now. But 5K at 24, 25 and 30 should be something that they could easily do. What it would be really nice is if you do that, hopefully they allow 4K at 120 frames per second and maybe 2.7K at 240 frames per second. What it would be really nice is 4K at 240 frames per second, but that's just not realistic. So they should release a 5K Pocket 3. Honestly, it would make such a massive difference to the quality, especially if you implement these other things, a D-Log, color space, or a series of D-Log profiles. That would be like the icing on the cake. A couple of other things that I think they should do is a better implementation for HDR. HDR is nice to have it gives you a lot of dynamic range, but at the moment it's not really well implemented. It would be really nice if they could do HDR at full res 5K, but I would be happy if they decide that HDR is only at 4K, so you can switch between 5K and 4K if need be, but not just an HDR that you can adjust manually, not on auto. So that you can adjust the white balance, the exposure, and all the manual settings that you get with normal filming. That would be really nice. And another thing that I genuinely believe would set the DJI Pocket 3 apart from anything out there in the market is the ability to adjust the sharpening in the camera, because these compact cameras these days, they are way over sharpened. And a lot of the times, if you want your footage to look nice, you need to dial that down. And ideally, you want to dial that down on camera so that your image is not so over sharpened. No other camera that I know of these days at this level allow for it, and only the higher end cameras allow for it. But having the ability to dial that up or down depending on the environment or what it is that you're filming would be really nice. And last but not least is the tracking. Okay, I think DJI really needs to look into this, because the tracking on the Pocket 2 has never been good, and they haven't really done any firmware upgrades to address this. So they really need to provide a tracking feature that actually works. And what it would be really nice, and this is a personal thing that I have not seen anybody doing, okay, is the ability to adjust the height of the tracking box. What I mean by this is that at the moment, if you set the tracking to your face or your head, the Pocket 2 will keep that in the middle of the frame. And there might be situations where you want that to be the case, but there will be other situations that you don't want it like that. For instance, if you're talking to camera, you don't want that much headroom. You're literally wasting space in your frame. So it would be really nice if there was a way to dial that up and down so that the box would know how far up or down it needs to keep that head, and not so much in the middle. That would actually be a really nice addition to hopefully a much improved tracking, because at the moment it's really not reliable, and a lot of the times it gives you this whiplash effect. You know, it needs to be really nice and smooth. So yeah, I can see why from a manufacturer's point of view it would make a lot of sense to have two models, a standard Pocket 3 and a DJI Pocket 3 Pro. Obviously they need to make it in a way so that they profit from it. But there will be a lot of these features that would be useful for someone like me that is filming with the Pocket 2, in this case would be the Pocket 3, and I need those additional features. But for other people, they don't need any of this stuff. They just want a small, tiny camera they can have, and a lot of the times run on auto. They would not want to pay for those features. So, but you know, it would make so much more sense, and it would literally make the Pocket 3 the perfect camera. Why would you want to go, for instance, traveling and take a DSLR or a mirrorless camera with interchangeable lenses and all the heavy accessories that go with it, where you could literally take a DJI Pocket 3 with very lightweight accessories that you can pretty much fit it in your pocket, you know, no pun intended. And I don't know if DJI is listening, but it would be really nice, and for a lot of people would justify upgrading from the Pocket 2 to the Pocket 3. Whether DJI implements half of them or even any of them, that's anyone's guess. But what do you guys think? What do you have in mind? Do you have even a wish list? Is there anything that drives you mad on the Pocket 2 that you would love to see the Pocket 3 getting rid of or improving on? I would love to hear what you guys have to say. So please leave any comments below, because you never know, maybe DJI is listening and is watching this video, reading the comments, and maybe they actually implement some of this stuff. All of them, that would be that would be something else. In the meantime, if you own a Pocket 2 and you want to know the best settings for filming with it, I have this video here where I show you the best settings for filming with the Pocket 2. It's a really nice video worth watching. And I have this video up here as well, where I show you why the DJI Pocket 2 is such an amazing traveling camera. And with that being said, I hope to see you in the next video. Have a good time.